everybody, welcome back. Happy Monday. I hope you guys had a good weekend. You guys are working on weather now, right? How's it going? Any pressing questions? Yes.
There's been a debate on the message board about whether to remove spaces or keep spaces when you input in a name.
Okay, there's apparently been a debate on the message board about whether to remove or keep spaces.
One TA said keep them, one said remove them.
You don't have to worry about spaces. I would not worry about removing spaces, but we don't really care about what happens with spaces. So don't worry about that. Yes. I am not sure. I will look into it. Any other questions? Alrighty. Well then, let's get started on today. So today we're going to talk a little bit more about web services. So far in the past, we did web services on Friday, and all the web services we did just output pretty much just plain text, right? And that's totally fine. That's a good use of web services, but you guys know from having used web services by contacting them with Ajax that, well, a lot of time web services give you back other stuff. So today, what I mainly want to talk about is how to make a web service give you back other stuff like XML and JSON, and really behave just like the web service that you're contacting for weather and some of the other web services that we've contacted that can do more complex things. So what I want us to start with actually is to just write a web service that outputs plain text, and then we're going to build on this. So for all of you guys who took 142 here, you probably remember this assignment called baby names. Is that ringing some bells? For some of you at least, okay, good. So basically the idea of that assignment was that you had a big file that had on each line a name, a gender, and then its popularity, where this is the popularity where names that are rated 1,000 or higher in popularity have an actual number, and numbers that are so unpopular that they're not in the top 1,000 for that year just have a 0. And in 142, we asked you to graph this data. Well, I don't want to graph this data today. Instead, what I want to do is for us to write a web service that will return this data to the user. And so first, I want us to just find the right line. Then we're going to worry about getting it in a good format for somebody to use. But first, let's just find the line. So I've got a file started here with a PHP block, nothing else. So this file should take 2 parameters. It should take name and gender as parameters. So the first thing let me do is just store them in variables. So name is equal to $_get at name, and then gender is equal to get at gender. All right. Now, I want to, I want to basically get the line out of the file here. So if I want to get the name out of the file, and the file is called rank.txt, so I want to get the line that has the same name and the same gender. How should I do that? Like what should I do first? I have a file, it has a whole bunch of lines in it. What function should I use to read the file? Just file, right? Great, just file. So So we can read the contents of the file using file, because file is going to get us each line in an index of the array, right? Which I think is what we want, because we want to loop through each line one at a time and see if it's the right line. So I can say like our lines is equal to file of, and then I think I called it rank.txt. And then let's remove the new line characters at the end of each row, because we probably don't want to actually output those. So I can pass it the optional parameter file, ignore new lines. There we go. All right, so I've read it. And now remember, our pattern when we read a file like this is that we read the file and we get this array of lines, and then we tend to for each over this. So we're going to for each, and then you for each for lines as, and then give each line some variable name. I'm going to call it line. But not with a hash. Line, there we go. Okay, now for each line, we want to see if it has the same name and the same gender. So if we look at the examples here, right, the name always comes first. The name always comes first, and then the gender. So how would you guys suggest if we have a line, how could we get those two pieces easily? Yeah. Split it on spaces. Yeah, I think that would be a good way to do it. So we could split it on spaces. So in order to do that, right, so we're going to end up with some tokens, and then those are going to be from the result of explode, called on space, and our string, which is our line, right? So those are all our tokens. Yes? Do we want to use list? So we could use list here. However, I think it's actually this is not an ideal place to use it, because we have some number of tokens that we're going to split apart, and we don't know exactly how many. So because in our file, we may have different numbers of decades. So we have a popularity for decade, and so we have a different one there for each. And so, I mean, we could name the first two, but we may want the rest separate later. Yeah. Okay. So tokens. So then, we need to see if we found it, right? So if we found it, we can tell if we found it because our tokens at 0 is equal to our name, right? And our tokens at 1 is equal to our gender. All right, so if we found it, well, what do we want to do if we found it? Let's just print it out for the moment. So for the moment, let's just print our line. All right, you guys all okay with this so far? Okay, so I'm going to save that, and then let's upload it. So this is babynames.php. Upload it there. All right, and then let's take a look at this. So I'll change from quote here to baby names. Baby names, there we go. Oh, and then I've got to log in. All right. Now I'm seeing nothing, but I've passed it no parameters. So that's not super surprising, right? All right, what name should I look up? Owen? Okay, so let's see. Name equals Owen. Maybe I'll make it capital here. Owen. And let's see. Gender equals male, maybe? All right, so Owen's in there. Never really the most popular name, but pretty popular. All right, sounds good. What if I tried Owen and female? No data. What if I tried, let's see, instead of Owen here, I'll try some like bunch of different random letters. Nothing. And now, would this be very friendly if you were writing a web service that talked to this? Seeing some shaken heads. Yeah, so this wouldn't be super helpful, right? Because basically you're sometimes getting data back and you're sometimes not. When you give your current web service you're working with bad parameters, what happens? Like, how do you know that was bad when you're writing to talk to it? How does your Ajax know that that was a bad combination? What? Empty string. So not really empty string. There's another way. Yeah. It gives you an error code, right? So it gives you an error code, and I believe the one in weather is 410 gone, right? Well, there are a lot of different error codes you can use. And so when we have errors, I mean, you can think of it like, if somebody doesn't put in enough parameters, like I did at the beginning, or, if they put in a combination that's just simply not there, well, you can make one of these error codes happen. And there's error codes for most things you can think of. So the one that we've cared about so far is this 200 one, because 200 means like, it's all right. Nothing terrible happened. I got the result. You're all good. Just put it on your page. No problems. All of the other error codes mean something bad has happened. So, you might be familiar with some of these, like 404. You get that all the time when you go to an address where there's nothing there. 403, if it's a page you have to log in for and you don't have the right login permissions, right? You've probably seen that one. There's all sorts of these. If you're curious what they are, if you Google HTTP error codes, there's all sorts of lists. There's a lot of fun ones, like my favorite list of error codes is status cats. So you can see things like, let's see, 416, request range not satisfiable. Let's see, there's all sorts of great ones here. 509, bandwidth limit exceeded. There's a ton of great ones. I'll show you my favorite one. So my very favorite one here, where did it go? Is 418. I'm a teapot. This is an actual error code. The people who, you probably thought that kind of comic I had on the front of the slides today was a joke. It's not. That's an error code. 418, the story behind this is, as a practical joke, the people who do these error codes and design these things, they made, I think it was a coffee language, and or no, maybe it was a tea language, and anyway, no, sorry, trying to remember, ridiculous story here. It was a coffee language, and the error was I'm a teapot because if you were supposed to have coffee and you had tea, that would be an error. So if you look it up, you'll find it. It's a pretty humorous story. The people who make the web have a sense of humor too. So that's where I'm a teapot comes from. I have yet to find a good reason to use it, but I'm still looking. So anyway, the ones you're probably going to be more concerned about are things like 410 gone, 404 page not found, and 403 forbidden. So how you actually cause these to happen? Well, you use what is going to be now our new favorite function, header. So we used header before, right? Do you guys remember what we used header for? If nobody wants to answer me today, I'm just going to stand here awkwardly all class, so you don't get off this easy. Yeah, it was for the content type. So for the content type, we said content type is equal to, whatever type it was we wanted. So we can also use this for our causing things to send back an error code. When you do that, you say HTTP/1.1 at the beginning. That has to be exactly that format, otherwise it won't work. And then you put the error code you want and some text about that error code. And that text doesn't have to match exactly the name of the error code. Usually people put the name in, but you don't technically have to. So if we want to do that in our code when things are broken, so I think there's a couple places we should maybe do this. So first of all, I think we should probably check if both of our parameters are present, because if both of them aren't here, well, there's no way we're going to be able to find it, right? So I want to check whether our parameters are set. So I can say like if isn't is set of, let's see, get of name, or so if the name isn't set, or if the let's see, or if the gender isn't set, then I can have one of these error codes sent back. So here we are. Here's our if, and then let's see, I can say header, and then HTTP/1.1, point one, and then for this one, let's just send back a 410 because, or actually, let's see, maybe not a 410 for this one, maybe a 400, because I think a 400 is an illegal request, and if you forget to send a parameter, you send an illegal request. So let's send back a 400, and I can say, I'll just say illegal. How do you spell illegal? I don't remember. Maybe I'll say invalid. There's nothing like typing in front of, a bunch of people to make you forget how to spell things. All right. So, invalid request. So, what's going to happen when we run this code is that we're going to come in here to the top. It's going to check if we have both of our parameters. If one or the other is missing, it's going to set the status. Now, when it sets the status is now set to 400, so you hope the person on the other end is checking for that status, right? But this doesn't actually stop your code executing. So your code is going to still all run after this. And you may not want this. In fact, you usually don't want this. I mean, one thing is it probably wastes some time for that code to run, but the bigger issue is if you're doing something like appending to a file or creating a new file or anything like that has side effects, that will still happen. And it will probably not happen how you want it if you don't have all your parameters. So whenever you say header in order to send back a status other than 200, afterward, you've got to kill it. So there's this function called die. And die does just what it sounds like. It kills your page. No more execution. That's it. So with die, you can have it have nothing inside it, but generally we like to put some text here because otherwise, if we just run our page like this, what's going to happen is that we're going to send back a status of 400. If we don't send a parameter, we send back a status of 400, then we die, so our page stops executing and nothing is on our page. And now this is fine if somebody's contacting our page via AJAX and getting back and looking at the status. But it's also helpful, when you're developing, you're probably trying out some queries just by manually typing in the parameters. And it's helpful to have something to see when you're just typing it in. If you type it in, do something wrong, forget one. So here, I would generally say something like, you need to give both a name and gender. Something like that, so that the user will have a message when they do this. Yes? what's the point of the invalid request 400? The point of this is that this line right here sets the status. And then this line here stops your page from running. So does invalid request never get printed? No, invalid request never gets printed. When you check your status, there is a way to check this message when you're checking your status in your Ajax. Normally people don't bother with that because once you know the number, you pretty much know what you want to do. I mean, you could check it and print it out, but a lot of people don't put good enough messages that it's really worth it. Any other questions? Yes. Oh, so since I need both of them, shouldn't it be is set and is set? So it would be if I wanted to have this stuff in my else, but I want to die if if this isn't set, or if this other one isn't set, then I want to die. Like if either one isn't set, I want to die. Any other questions? All right. Well, I think there's maybe, somewhere else in here where we could use another one of these errors. So can you guys think of another place we might want to throw an error? Yeah. Yeah, if I can't find the combination of name and gender, I should probably tell the user, I couldn't find it. So if I can't find it, well, we don't know if we found it until we've looked through everything, right? So I probably got to print that error after the loop. So, if I need to figure out somehow how to tell if I didn't find it. Yeah. Can you use a token? Like basically a Boolean value that we set to true if we found a line. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. So we could have, up here we could have some value like, let's call it found, and then we'll set it to false because initially we haven't found it. And then whenever we come into this if statement, we know we have found it, so we'll set found to be true, right? And then we can say if not found. So if we've never entered that if, we've never printed anything. So if we haven't found it, then we basically want to do this stuff again, except I think here, well, first of all, we should give it a different message. Let's see, the name and gender you supplied had no data or something like that. And then I don't think 400 is a good error message to send back because, well, it wasn't an invalid request. They gave a totally valid request. They supplied all their information. We just didn't happen to have any data for that. So I think in that case, I would probably use 410 because we don't have that data. It's missing data. So I'm going to say 410 here, missing data. All right. You guys happy with this so far? Yeah. Do we still need to die since we're already at the end of our code? And so we don't have to die here because since you're right, we are at the end of our code. There's nothing else that's going to happen after this line. So we don't technically need to die. I personally tend to put a die in anyway, no matter where I'm doing header, simply because if you come along later to edit your file and you add stuff at the bottom below that, then you do need to die. And my memory's not very good and I tend to forget to add it back in. So it's okay to die here or not die, whatever you prefer, as so long as you're at the very end. Yes? If you didn't die, wouldn't it not print anything? So yeah, if you didn't die, it wouldn't print anything. it would be also fine in this case. I mean, you still should probably print something, but it would be fine to do this in a print instead. But you still would probably want to give the user a message if you want it to be very user-friendly. Any other questions? Yeah? Where would the headers information be displayed, the 410 missing data? This is not displayed anywhere. You will never see this. You will, unless you manually get it out of the status yourself in Ajax. But just opening this in the browser, you won't see it. So let's actually try doing that. So we'll upload this. All right, and then I'll come back to our page, and then let's see. So here I've got a bad name here. It's just a bunch of random letters. So the name and gender you supplied had no data. So we see the die text, but we don't see any of the status. And then if I just leave off one of these parameters, like I'll leave off name, it says you need to give both a name and a gender. So I think it's working like we want. Any other questions? All right. Well, then I want to make our web service a little bit better. So at the moment, our web service is just, printing out the data. Not very interesting. And I want to make it a little better. So one thing you can do with the web service, and I don't really want to do this right now, but there is a server superglobal array. So a superglobal array is like the get array is the superglobal array, the post array, something that you can access anywhere. There's also the server array, and you can access a bunch of different information about it in here. The one thing that I want you to be aware of in this is the request method. The request method tells you whether it's get or post, and this is very useful if you have a web service that takes both get and post requests. So if your web service takes both get and post, well, you need to check whether you've got a get or a post coming in, and so this will allow you to do that. And I want you to know about this because this can be a very useful thing to do. I have only been showing you get requests at the moment. Do you guys have any idea why I would choose to show get requests instead of post for these web service examples? Yeah. So you can see the parameters in the URL, exactly. So when you send a post request, right, you've done this in section, and you need to send, through Ajax, you need to send form data, right, in your send. And there's no way I can easily, without writing an Ajax page, just send in those parameters. And so that's the reason I've been using get for all of these examples, because I think it's complex enough to see how the web service works without having to deal with, the Ajax too. So that's why I haven't been doing post, but we could definitely do some post stuff. We may do some post stuff later. You just can't do post without doing the Ajax side too. But I wanted you to know about this because this can be very useful. All right, so after that little side, let's get back to outputting our data in a better way. So at the moment, we've just been outputting single line, right? Now, that's okay, but that means somebody at the other end, probably you, when you write your Ajax, has to parse all of that data and has to separate the name and the gender and then loop through all of the different ranks, right? That's kind of annoying. So instead, right, we've been talking about structured data. It's a lot better to just give our data a little structure. So here at the bottom is an example of one type of structure we could give our data. So this is structure using XML, right? So I would like to show you guys how to create XML. So we're not going to do it like this, right? We've seen basically with HTML, just printing it out looks really gross. I think it looks even grosser with this code, frankly. it's not pleasant. So we're not going to do that. Instead, what we're going to do is use PHP's XML DOM. So the XML DOM is very similar to just the DOM for the page. And so the things we're going to care about a lot here, create element. That is what's going to allow us to create a new node, kind of a node in the DOM for each tag. Create text node is what's going to allow us to put text into that. Anytime we just want to put text directly in, we'll need create text node. Then we're going to come back to some of those ones down there later on. The other things that you'll probably care about a lot here is using set attribute. And this is if you want to, give, let's see if we go back up here. When we have something like year here, right, that's an attribute. So if we wanted to do that, that would be set attribute. All right, and then append child. Append child does what it usually does. It appends the new node onto DOM. So if I come here, actually, I think I might have a little example. Yeah, here we go. So here's a little example of some of this happening. There's a couple things I want you to notice in here. So first of all, we create an object for the XML DOM. It is a PHP object. And so when we do that, we say new DOM document. That creates us a new object. Now, anytime we want to call a method on that object, we use this little arrow syntax. So little arrow syntax right here, this is telling us, like, call this method that's on the DOM document object. So right here, what we're doing, we create it, then we create a books tag, and then we append that books tag to the DOM document. With XML, remember that everything has to be enclosed in one single tag. So you can't have various other things kind of hanging out. You can't have like 4 different book tags in a row. You've got to have one around all of them. All right. So let's do this. So here we are in our file, and in our file here, we know when we found this because we've got into this if statement in the loop. So if I found this, well, I want to create some XML. So I should probably create a DOM document object. So I'm going to say DOM is equal to a new DOM document. All right, paren. So now this is my my DOM here. Now let's look at the XML that we're supposed to create again. So ignore this line at the top for the moment. Next tag we need to create a tag called baby with an attribute name and an attribute gender. So let's see. If we want to do that, well, a baby tag, if we want to create a tag, we're going to say DOM arrow, and then we have a create element function. So create element, and then we can pass this basically any name we want. This will be the name of the tag. So baby for now. All right. Now, if I want to set an attribute for this baby tag, what I'm going to do is instead of saying DOM arrow, because I want to set the attribute on the baby tag, I'm going to say baby arrow. So baby arrow set attribute, and then set attribute takes 2 parameters. So one is the name of the attribute and one is the value. So the name is going to be name, and the value is going to be like our passed in name there. All right, so that is setting the name attribute. We can also set the gender attribute here. So gender and $gender. All right, you guys okay with this so far? Okay, so we've got a baby tag with two attributes, name and gender. So that's kind of the first thing that we needed, right? And then for each of those ranks listed, we're going to create a rank tag that's going to set it. We're going to set that rank tag's text to whatever that rank is, and we're going to give it an attribute of year. The years are always going to start at 1890. So if we want to do this, well, we're going to need to loop through. Before we do that, actually, let's attach our baby tag to the DOM, because nothing's going to print out if we don't attach the baby tag. If we don't attach any tag to the DOM, we don't get any output. So I'm going to say DOM append child, and then we're going to append baby. All right. Now, we've done that. We've connected up everything we've done so far. Now we want to loop through and add all these rank tags. So if I want to loop through all the ranks, I basically want to loop through my tokens here, right? I want to loop through those tokens. So let's see, not int, geez, I'm in PHP. Int, I equals 0. Got Java on the brain for some reason today. Okay, for I is equal to 0, I is less than count of tokens, $I plus plus. Is this going to allow me to loop through all of my tokens? Is there anything I might want to change about this loop? What do I want to change? Okay, great. So I want to change my initial I value to 2. And I want to do that right because if I think about my file, my first two things, Morgan and M or whatever, my name and my gender, I don't want to print out those as ranks, right? Those aren't ranks. So that's exactly right. I'd want to start at 2. So, okay, I'm going to start at 2. And then for each of these, I need to create a rank tag. So let's create one. So rank is equal to DOM, arrow, and then we're going to create element, and then the element we want to create is rank. Okay, so we've got a rank tag. Now, in our rank tag, we want to set the attribute. We want to set the attribute of year. So rank, arrow, set, attribute, and then the name of the parameter is year, and we need the value. We're always going to start at 1890. So let's just create a variable outside our loop here, and this can be like our year starts at 1890, and then we can just add to it every time. So we'll pass in $year here. All right, so we've got that attribute, and then we're going to also need to put the actual rank in. All right, so we're going to need to put the actual rank in. If we want to put the rank in, if we want to put anything just inside a tag, we need to make it a text node. So what we can do here is we can say, our text is equal to DOM, arrow, create text node, and then the text that we want to put in here is our rank, which is our tokens at wherever we are in our list. Okay, so we've created text node with our ranks text. Now we need to append that text node inside of our rank tag so we can attach them. So we can say rank append child, and then this is our text, and then we also probably need to attach our rank, right? because our ring tag is just kind of hanging out on its own now, so we need to put that inside our baby tag. So we can say baby append child of rank. All right, so a couple of things I want you to notice here. Whenever I do create element, anytime at all I do create element, I say DOM arrow. You'll always create an element from the DOM. When I set attribute or when I append child, I say the element that I want to set the attribute on, arrow, set attribute, or the element I want to append the child to, arrow, append child. So your thing on the left side of the arrow may change. Any questions about this so far? Yes? Shouldn't we be modifying the year? Yes, we should be modifying the year. So we've got the popularity data for each decade. So I think that we should probably say, our year plus equals 10 each time, so that we're on a new decade. Otherwise, we'll forever be in 1890. That wouldn't be so good. Any other questions? All right, so we've created some great XML here. If we upload this and run it, nothing is going to happen. Nothing at all. Because this just puts together XML. It doesn't do anything with it. So in order to do stuff with it, we've got to save it. So there's a function called save XML. There's also save. Save will save to a file. We don't really care about holding on to this XML. So we can just save it. If we save XML, that will save it into a string. And we could save that string into a variable if we wanted, or we can print it. So what we tend to do here is after this loop here, we will say print, and whoa, not like that. Okay, we will say print, and then when we want to call save XML, we have to call it on our DOM. So DOM arrow save XML. So this is going to create a string from our XML, and then the print is going to print it out. If you just save XML, you'll still get no output because you've just got a string there. All right, we're missing one important thing though. We have not told the browser that this is XML. We tell the browser this is XML by using header, right? And header has to be the first thing output. So what I'm going to do is right before this print, I'm going to say header, and then this is, remember, the content type sort of header, not the die type of header. And this is text/XML. All right, you guys okay with this? Anything I can explain a little better? All right, yes. Why do you have to save it and then print it? Because saving it only saves it into a string. It makes a string. It doesn't actually print. Yeah. So it has to be at the very beginning before anything is printed. So what's going to happen when we run this file is that all of this stuff in the PHP block is going to run, and it's not going to be output. So it has to be the very first line of output. Yeah. We just happen to not be outputting much in this. Yes? What if I did what? If I printed header multiple times, I believe that the second call to header probably wouldn't work because it wouldn't be the first line output. I'm not actually 100% sure because you really should never print header a bunch of times. It's fine if you have different calls to header, but they're in like different branches of an if statement, so only one will ever get printed. But you would never just have multiple calls of content type one after another. Would it be bad to die after the print? You could die after the print. I mean, I think that would, that would probably be fine. I wouldn't say you need to though. Alrighty, let's actually try this out. We can, hopefully I haven't made any typos and this will just work. All right, so let's give this some valid parameters. So gender, I took out names. So names equal to, you guys have another name you want to see? Isaac. Okay, ISSAC, is that right? Okay, Isaac, and gender, we should probably do male. Okay, there we go. What? No data. What is? Oh, 1S2As. Okay, 1S2As. All right, let's try that. There we go. So we got some data. Notice my browser knows this is XML, so it's displaying this nicely and color coding and everything. So name, gender, and then for each rank we have the year and the rank in here. Any other questions about generating XML? All right, well, you probably noticed that was a lot of code, right? XML always seems to be a lot of code. It was a lot of code in JavaScript, it's a lot of code in PHP. So there's another way, of course. There is JSON. And so if we were to output this data in JSON instead, basically we're going to be outputting it in that JavaScript object type of format. Now, when we do that, basically what this means is that, we're not going to print it because we never just print stuff like with printing all the curly braces and escape sequences and all that. That's gross. We have a JSON decode and a JSON encode function. What this means is that you can basically put all of your stuff into an array. So you can have an array where you basically say, the string name, arrow, the dollar name, the string gender, arrow, dollar gender, so on and so forth. And then once you have that, you can just print out JSON encode of that. So we don't have time to actually do that in class today, but we will do that on Wednesday. So we will get some practice with that then, and you will get some practice in lab later this week. You'll be amazed when you see the JSON. It is so much faster and nicer than the XML. All right, so we'll do that next time. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you on Wednesday.
How do you see a website's directory?
How do you see a website's directory?
Like a list of all the files they have and stuff.
Oh, so just like see the directory listing?
Yeah.
So that's a setting on the server.
Oh.
So if you're on some other website, like some other server other than WebStr, we have it turned on WebStr because it's helpful when you're programming. Most web servers have it turned off because it can create some security problems, because people will basically see like there's all these different files.
So
Let me
do you
just
know
click
how
on.
to override it or something?
You
Would it be
can't
possible?
override it without doing some serious hacking, probably. I mean, server settings. Basically, a server setting is really not meant to be overridden. They really don't want you to override it. They don't make it easy. So, yeah.
Good. Thank you.
No problem. Hi.
Okay to have nested append child in PHP.
Nested append child.
Append child and append child.
So it's like you.
One
Here, let's
append
get out
child
here.
You know what your number is?